So if I remove everything from this text field and if I click on reset, it will get the default value that I have specified over there. These values to the server. If you want to use them in your JavaScript, if you want to fetch it on the client side, definitely you can fetch it, but you cannot submit it to the server. So that's the difference between a read-only and so size actually decides how many characters would be visible over there on the screen at a time. It doesn't mean down arrow, it's not going less than 0. Let me go up, and now it will not go more than 10. And now I can select more than one files as well. So it has selected 3 files right now. So you can see the cursor will automatically come in that field itself. Hey guys, I'm Amit Kumar and welcome to this video in which we are going to talk about HTML input attributes. So other than the type attribute, there are some other attributes that you can use in the input. And guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to stay updated with proper Salesforce tutorials and want to watch more tutorials, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. Also, if you have thoughts or question, drop it in the comments. I would love to hear from you and promise I will read every single one. Thank you so much guys, and now you can proceed with the video. And one of the attribute is value. It specifies an initial value for an input field. So whatsoever value you specify to this attribute, that is the initial value. By default, form will load and that value will be there. And when the user will change the value, definitely this value attribute will get changed. Read only, it specifies that an input field's value can't be modified. So if you make a specific input field as read only, you won't be able to change the value of it. Disabled, it specified that an input field is disabled. So once you specify this attribute, definitely the field will get disabled. Now there is a difference between read only and disabled. Even the field is read only, you can copy the text that is present in the read only field. So you can copy the text from a read only field, but you cannot copy the text from a disabled field. Secondly, when you are submitting the form, the value specified in the read only field got submitted, but the value specified in the disabled field is not submitted. Size, it specifies the number of characters visible at time for the input field. So how many characters there should be visible over there, or what should be the width of that specific input field. Max length is used to specify the maximum number of characters accepted by an input field. So if you will specify max length for characters, you can't enter more than that characters. Size and max length attribute are basically used with text, email and password types of input field. Max specifies the maximum value for an input field. Min specifies the minimum value for an input field. Max and min works with number, date and month type of input fields. You should use max and min together if you want your input field to work within a range of value. Multiple, it specifies whether the user is allowed to enter more than one value for the input field. Multiple is basically used with file attribute of input. Placeholder specifies a short hint for an input field. So it shows as a hint text over there in the input field, and as soon as the user will click over it and enters anything, that placeholder text vanishes. Required specifies that an input field is required to be filled before form submission. So if you make any input field as required on the click of the submit button, and if that field is not filled, if the value is not specified in that field, it will show it as an error and form will not get submitted. Step, it specifies the number of intervals for an input field. Step attribute works with number, date and month type of input field. Autofocus, it specifies that an input field should automatically get focused when the page loads. So whenever a page loads, automatically a cursor goes to any specific field, right? So if you mention autofocus to any specific input field, definitely the cursor will go to that specific input field. By default, autofocus should be used only with one field, but suppose there are 3 input fields and you have used autofocus with all 3 of them. So automatically the first element will get the focus and it will ignore the rest of them. Height specifies the height of an image input field. Width specifies the width of an image input field. So basically height and width are used with image input field for that image submit button. List, it refers to a data list element. So when we use a data list element, that contains predefined option. So that data list element is referred by this list attribute of the input field. So it's pretty much of talk, and now it's time to see the things practically. Hey guys, here we are on our VS Code, and let's quickly add few more HTML pages to see HTML input attributes. So in our previous video we have seen input types, and now we are going to add some attributes to those input types. So let me create input attributes 1.html. Now I will add some basic HTML component to it. So let me quickly do that. So as you can see, here is the first HTML page that I have created, and in this I have added one full name. Now the first attribute that I am going to tell you is value. So value attribute we have already seen when we have saw the checkbox and radio button. But whenever you provide a value to any specific text field or any specific input field, you are providing an initial value to it. The value of this field can change. So let me provide an initial value to it like Amit Kumar. Let me just save it and let me open this specific page. So let's go to HTML input attributes, open input attributes 1.html, and now you can see the text field itself is having a value. Now I can certainly change this value and make it anything over here, but whenever you assign a value to it, definitely it will show that value as the initial value of that field. And that's not all. This initial value is the default value as well. So if you remember the reset button, so basically what we do is on the click of the reset button, it resets the value of all the text fields, but it resets it to the default value. So if I remove everything from this text field and if I click on reset, it will get the default value that I have specified over there. Now the next one is the read only. So let's suppose if I make this specific field as read only and save it, I am not able to change it, right? I can click on it, but I cannot change it. I can select it even, but I cannot change it, right? So this is an interesting thing. I can make a copy of it, I can paste it anywhere, but as it is read only, I cannot change it. Now there is one more attribute that seems to be like a read only attribute, but to show you the difference, I'm just creating another input field over here. So as you can see, I have created another input field, but this time for address, I have entered a value for it as well, but I am making it as disabled and not as read only. So the difference between read only and disabled is, but let me show you the similarity first. You can definitely select any one of them. You can copy any one of them, but on the click of the submit button. So if I would have a submit button over here, on the click of that, these value will not be submitted. You cannot submit these values to the server. If you want to use them in your JavaScript, if you want to fetch it on the client side, definitely you can fetch it, but you cannot submit it to the server. So that's the difference between a read only and a submit field. And definitely a read only field looks like a normal field until unless you try to make any change on it, but you can easily recognize a disabled field. The next attribute is size. So I am creating few more input fields over here. I am not creating any label for them, just the simple input fields. So I'm just copy pasting these BRs, so that would be handy. And let me create an input type text, and let me create few more of them. Let's suppose 3. So you can see I'm having 3 text fields over there, but I will provide different size values. So here I will provide size as 10, size as 50, and size as 100. Let me save this. Now this is the difference between size. So size actually decides how many characters would be visible over there on the screen at a time. It doesn't mean that I cannot enter more than 10 characters to it, but definitely at a time almost 10 characters will be visible to me. If I will add 20, it will show the last 10 over there. Now there is a specific attribute which can fix the number of characters in a field. Like right now I can enter as many characters I want. There are situations if I will keep on typing, definitely it will move ahead, but I can enter more than 10 characters. But let's suppose if I created an input field with a max length attribute and I specify it as 5, now I cannot enter more than 5 characters over here. So let me try to do that. So even I am keeping on typing, but it will not accept more than 5 characters. So max length is an attribute which can fix the maximum number of characters that you can enter in an input field. Size and max length works with text, email and password. Now let's create another file and let's see few more attributes. Let me name it as input attributes 2. Now the next attribute that I am going to show you is max and min. Now these are to specify the maximum and the minimum value. They work with number, date and month. So I am showing their use with help of a number and a date as well. So let me show you that one by one. So let me create a number field first. So input type as number, and let me provide a min value as 0 and a max value as 10. So let me show you this. So here is the number field, and when I started, it started from 1, and if I click on down arrow, it's not going less than 0. Let me go up, and now it will not go more than 10. So with the help of min and max together, you are actually specifying a range of value over here. We can use it with date as well. So let me create a date over here. So input type date. So right now date is there. You can certainly select any specific date, and let me show you, like I can select date of 31st of October as well, right? But let me provide a date as, let's suppose 2nd of October in 2022. So we will specify the date in a specific format. We will specify it in year, month and date format. So let me do that. So let me specify the year, and that will be minimum date. That's my bad. So or let it be maximum date. So 2022, month is 10, and let's suppose date is 2. Let me save this and let me click on it. So now you can see you cannot select any date after 2nd October 2022. So similarly, if you specify a min value to it, let's suppose 2022 1 1, so you cannot select any value less than this. So because we have provided a range, you can see 2022 is already fixed because year is the same. So you cannot change the year to 2021. You cannot make any selection from here, and even in 2022, if you try to select after 2nd of October, it's not possible, but you can select from 1st of January. That's the minimum value. So that's the use of min and max. The next attribute that I'm going to show you is multiple attribute. Definitely it is useful when you want to make more than one selections. So there is a input type file, if you remember, and let me add some BR over here. Now they will come in new lines. So definitely we can select some files. So let me do that. So as you can see, on clicking on choose, we can select one file, but let me take you to a place where there are more than one files. So right now, if I'm trying to select with shift more than one files, it's not possible, right? I can select one file, but I can't select more than one. But if I add that multiple attribute over here, it is showing, instead of showing choose file, it is showing choose files. And now I can select more than one files as well. So it has selected 3 files right now. So this is the use of multiple attribute. Now let me show you the use of placeholder. So if you remember, the last time I created this text input field, I have entered a value to it, but instead of value, I can use a placeholder. Now what's the benefit of placeholder? Placeholder actually gives a hint to you, like what sort of value you can enter into it. So as soon as you will click on it and you type something, the placeholder text automatically removes. So placeholder is there to provide a hint, like what sort of value you can provide over here. Now for the next attribute that I want to show you, I need a submit button again. Let me quickly add a submit button over here. Okay, and now let me make this name field as required. So now if I try to click on this submit, it's going to show me an error. So what sort of error it is showing? Okay, actually it is getting hidden. So let me use required, not on the name, but on the input type number. And let me click on this submit. So if any field is required and you have not selected any value for it, on the click of submit, it will show you that please fill out this field. So actually you have made that field as required. That means value has to be selected for this specific field. You might have seen some of the required fields on web pages when you are filling out a form, right? So whenever you are creating a form, you want any specific field to be entered, you want the user to must enter value in that field, definitely you should use this required attribute. So let's create one more file and let's see some more attributes. So let me add one more file over here, name it input attributes 3, and let me quickly add some components to it, basically the default one. So for the rest of them I'm going to remove it. In fact, let me just keep the number one because the number input field I'm going to use right now. So let me go back, refresh and open input attributes 3, and here's the number field. Now we have set a minimum and a maximum value over here. So let me set the maximum as 100, and the next attribute that I'm going to show is step. Now with the help of step attribute, you can specify the intervals at which you want the value. So if I specify 10, I will get the value at the intervals of 10. So if I will click on this up arrow once, I will get 10, twice. So you can see the next value is coming at a difference of 10. So this is step attribute that you can use on numbers. Basically you can also use it on date and month as well. Now the next attribute that I want to show you is autofocus. So if I will refresh this page for now, you can't see the cursor coming in any field. Actually there is only one field over here. So let me quickly add few more fields. So I have added actually 2 more fields over here. Let me just remove the read only and the value from there. Okay, so now I'm refreshing this page and still you can't see cursor in any of the field. But if I use autofocus attribute to any of the input field, so let me make it autofocus and let me refresh this page. So you can see the cursor will automatically come in that field itself. Now you can make any one of the field as autofocus, but what happens if you make more than one field as autofocus? And let me refresh it. It will still take the first field in which it will find the autofocus. So it's basically useless to use autofocus in more than one fields. You can give it to that specific field in which you want the cursor to appear as soon as the page is loaded. Now the next 3 attributes that are there which we are going to discuss, I have already shown you those attributes earlier. These attributes are height and width attribute. We have used the height width when we were using input type image. So let me show you that. Here is where I have used it. So you can see the height and width attribute is basically useful and is basically used with input type image only to specify the height and width of the image. And the last attribute was list attribute, and we have talked about list attribute basically when we have used the data list element. So if you remember in form elements we talked about data lists. So this is the list attribute. List attribute of input is used to specify the ID of the data list, right? And this actually holds the value selected in the data list. So these were the various attributes that we use with the input types. That marks the end of this video. See you soon in the next video. Till then, thank you and take care.